Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Solstice Summer Showdown here. We've got some lower bracket action coming at you to start off the night. We've got Nova Scotia taking on our zero and taking you through your long ride through the night. Through me, I'm Dor, and I'm joined by the always handsome man of class. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. It's been a hot minute since we've done something together, but it's going to be a even hotter minute tonight, up a hot couple of minutes, because we're going to do an entire series that's usually more than a few minutes. So yeah, it's going to be a good one, hopefully. And like you said, our zero Nova Scotia, it's going to be the matchup, and they've both already, of course, lost games because they're in the lower bracket. But tonight they're hoping to win one, and one of them will unfortunately be going home, and we're just going to have to wait and see who it is. But both of these teams. I mean, we've seen them before. They've played games. You know, they're have been to tournaments. So
They're
otherwise, we
definitely
wouldn't be
teams.
here. Yeah, they are teams. That is something we can confirm, indeed. And I mean, we've seen them before, so we know kind of what they like to do, and maybe some of that has changed somewhat because of the patch they came in on Tuesday, but hopefully not too much. And the Hour Zero roster, you know, we've seen them: Beckenbauer, Train Clouds, Synoid, Viral, Cupcake, Jam, and they've been messing it up a little bit, playing some Junkrat here and there. You know, see the Echo do very well from Viral as well. Cyanoid on the Ash doing a lot of work. And then Cupcake and Jam in the back line. But the front line is what I really liked last time. Train Cloud on that Sigma was just a wreck, really a wrecking. Not really on the Sigma, not on the actual wrecking ball, but you know, did a lot of work on the Sigma. And Beckenbauer just making sure they get the space to do that, to get the off angles and play that Sigma properly. And then we go to Nova Scotia, who you've actually cast at door. That wasn't me. So maybe you've got some more to say about them.
It's been a while ago since I've seen Nova Scotia, but Titan, Tricky Zerg, Thunders, Pizza Lawyer, Exalted, and Dr. Grimm. Exalted and Titan, I think, are the two big ones for me to keep an eye out for, especially when we head on to Lijiang Tower. I think there's been a big mix-up, though, as far as the meta goes. You mentioned the patch on Tuesday, and
Yeah.
Brig isn't deleted from the game, but she's definitely a
Well,
lot less strong compared to how she used to be. And even last night when Moxie and I were casting, we saw plenty of the Genji being played, but still plenty of the Brigitte being run to counter because there's just not that many things. I think as the night went on, we saw more and more teams adapt with the DPS swaps. Things like the Torbjorn are
yeah.
extremely effective at dealing with some of these flankers, especially when they don't have the Brig armor on them anymore. But the Brigitte is still a pseudo answer, I'd say.
She's still a force to be reckoned with just by everything she still does, even though the armor doesn't overheal anymore. It's still there, can still heal from long range. She can still have the Inspire go on. The Rally is still a very good ultimate. And of course, her own like shield bash, shield mm, flail, so whip shot. Yeah, those type of things. They just do a lot. So Brigitte still very much prevalent, but like you said, not quite deleted from the game, but they really tried. I'll give them that. They definitely tried to kick her out of the game to a certain degree. So yeah, some people might be happy, some people might not be. All these teams, though, I think there's some unity going on because we often see it that these teams have like the same player icons in the lobby, like this team one has that, this team like that. But both these teams using the exact same player icon. I think that's the Alliance icon, if I'm not mistaken. So they all have the blue background with the yellow lion on it, and it's unity. Both teams, 12 players, all doing that, and you like to see it. You know, some wholesomeness in there after Pride Month, and I like it. Starting with Lijiang Tower here, Control Center. I don't know, like it's going to be a hot one, I'd say.
Well, if there's one thing I'm expecting, and one thing that we saw yesterday, a ton of Genji. It doesn't matter what you're running it with. People have been running this Genji, likening it more to a brawl character with the advanced damage, with the smaller cone on the alternate fire. It has made him into a character that can actually deal a pretty serious amount of damage to some of
A
these
tank
tanks. And then you
buster.
add in the dash, you add in the mobility, you make him so much harder to hit. And he can actually become a real force of nature in some of these fights and not just this Defran-esque blade farmer.
Yeah, and I do really feel like it's almost vanilla Genji that's gotten really good, but the blade still doesn't have that oomph that you really want it to. It kind of still feels like you need that nano a lot of the time. So I like that they powered up Genji, but the ultimate, as good as it can be, I still feel like it is very glass cannony. Whereas the vanilla Genji has now been brought up to par with other heroes. The ultimate still feels very suicidal in a lot of cases, especially when the big armor's gone. But you can't always play the Ana because she gets dove really easily. You really have to take that risk. And when we see these teams load up their compositions, both are probably making this symmetry to get out of the spawn quicker. But Viral might actually go out with that Genji, Pizza Lawyer, or the Junkrat. And that's a very big challenge. and of course Titan and Train Cloud trading it out on the Reinhardt and the Sigma.
Yeah, and I think the Reinhardt and Sigma are going to be the real differences here. With the Junkrat, you're going to be breaking through a lot of these shields, so it's kind of just this race against time. See if they can get the damage in before they get taken down themselves. The Symmetra and Junkrat are some real threats. They're already going to be charging themselves up. Great haul into the Dynamite onto Nova Scotia, taking a ton of damage before the fight even starts. But Hour Zero, they've been forced back in their own right. The turrets are all set up. The point has been locked down. We see Thunders at full charge into Hour Zero. They're trying to approach, but no more Mortality Field left. They're going to start falling. Pizza Lawyer will be the first to go, though. On the side of Nova Scotia, they trade 2 more back. Titan trying to close the gap down to Beckenbauer. Slowly, the trench warfare moving forward. Now Hour Zero finally grinded out.
Yeah, and that's really the power of that Junkrat Symmetra. The longer they're able to stay their ground and keep spamming their abilities, using that Symmetra beam to burn down the shields and just gain more and more charge. Eventually, that is more like, it's like the opposite of heal sustain. It's like damage sustain. So the longer they're in the fight, the more they're able to do. Whereas Viral and Synod really have to do more of these precision damage moves to really get their value.
Absolutely. I mean, you're running double shield, something that relies on sustain to really have an effect. But with those sustained DPS being on the other side, you're getting beaten at your own game effectively here. Now, with a pretty serious set of ultimates, Nova Scotia have a strong chance of holding this opponent so long as they can avoid getting taken down early by things like this Blade. Hour Zero, they're looking to just hold on to the space until they're asking it back up. The fight's a little dangerous. They've already lost 2, but the Blade's going in anyways. Viral doesn't give a damn. Flying over top, slicing and dicing his way on through, but can't find anything but a spare immortality field as his team gets taken apart behind him.
Yeah, I really like the way that they're playing around this. Definitely spot out Sino in time. Already losing that Ash, and they still push in. So they just get cleaned up by all this damage. Now, the ultimates are starting to come online, especially that rally. It's going to be very important to try and get through all of this spam. But will that be enough? Would Pizza Lawyer be ready for that flank tire?
Yeah, Thunders is going to be charged up. The rally is an important engagement, but again, even so, Nova Scotia can back up using that speed advantage that they have. Never mind! Screw that! They've got a tire advantage. 4-man from Pizza Lawyer to break that fight open early.
It's a very sneaky position to be in. It's very risky. You know, if they turn around on time and destroy both the Junkrat and the tire at the same time, you lose a member. But when you get the 4K, no one cares about the risk. No one cares about the glass kind of mentality. You just take that. You take that position because who checks their corners?
And now that rally that we talked about earlier coming into effect. The Amplification Matrix going to be holding off for the time being, but a Gravitic Flux throwing it as well here from Hour Zero. They want to win this fight, and they want to win it bad, using everything in their pockets, but they still lose Jam to start the fight off. Great Proton Barrier here from Thunder is going to be keeping everybody up, alive, and away from so much of that scary damage that Hour Zero is throwing out. Beckenbauer now sits point alongside Train Cloud, but they're running straight into Tricky Zerg, who's holding his ground alongside Thunders, who's beaming people down left and right and making it a 99-0 point take for Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia coming out with the slightly unorthodox and unheard of strat. But I like it. You know, if you know that they're not, at least not going to have that armor overcharge, if you know that they're not going to have a place where they can just over-sustain you as easily as before, it's really nice to see you try out a strat like that, where you pull out the Symmetra and the Junkrat, you burn down the shields, you basically make all their healing resources having to be expended very early because you break the shields easily, and then you, like we said, you over sustain. You out damage the sustain, and that's something that's been more and more doable in Overwatch because, of course, the barriers were nerfed, the healing is consistently being kept down a peg, and I like it. I like this this new side that I haven't really seen before.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach to a map that we don't see an interesting approach taken to all that often, right? Lijiang is kind of the home of map-specific cheese, whether it be the teleport strategies on Night Market, the dive-heavy, contest until 99% strategies that we see on Gardens. I think Control Center has been relatively untouched outside of the May Doomfist strats, which I wouldn't really consider that much of a specialty. This double spam, I really like to see in Junkrat. That's one of his strongest maps. I can speak from experience.
Yeah.
He can do a ton of work there. And you can see just from this tire how powerful he can be. Charge that up in what, 1.5 fights?
Yeah, it was insane. And Junkrat has been, you know, played on Control Center before. Like you said, it's not something that we have never seen with the Junkrat, but it's that combination with the Symmetra. Because we've seen Symmetra in a vacuum, we've seen Junkrat in a vacuum in like different comps there. Like I remember, I think that was Shanghai Dragons at some point that like teleported a Bastion bunker around Control Center in a game at some point. And then you see these teams trying to put that together where they say we use both the Symmetra, which the teleporter was not actually used that much, but I think they use it maybe for fast respawns or something. And then the Junkrat for the extra spam, and it is double spam, which, it's almost reminiscent of having the Zarya Symmetra, where you have the double beam, which is just devastating. It's like Echo Focus Beam on steroids if you do that. It's not fun to play against, but it's really cool to see if teams do it. So that's why we cast. We don't have to suffer ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at what the Symmetra was able to do, and it was doing more than just damage. It was splitting apart the players of Hour Zero. They weren't dealing with it effectively. It looked more like a cockroach running into a sorority house, the way they all just spread out, running away. And they
Yeah.
just cower exactly, doing everything they could to just avoid the Symmetra instead of actually just dealing with the problem. How many times did we see that Symmetra on just a random off angle instead of playing with their Orisa? I think it was something that they could actually look at deal with instead of trying to run away from, because your shields aren't going to last that long. You can't cower behind them for that long.
No, and I think as well, if you're putting Symmetra on the off angle, you kind of have to do that to a degree. Like the Junkrat can throw the nades around it, but Symmetra sort of has to be on the off angle, and that's why they could play the Reinhardt, because normally you really need that Sigma in order to have like that off angle damage to get the accretions in, to throw the orbs around the side, to put the shield in as well. And I think that using the Symmetra on that off angle really puts it at substitute. You have the extra turrets that slow people down, so you really play at your pace and you slow down the enemy in anything they want to do with both the Symmetra turrets as well as the Junkrat and the Symmetra spam. And then even if they come close, you still have a Reinhardt that just bats them away with a hammer. So on that nice combination. For everyone who's wondering, by the way, yes, we had the first point. There's been a bit of a pause, so I think we're about to just go back in to the next point. But that's why we kept on talking for so long. So we're sorry, not our fault. Sometimes internet is just not your friend. That's for the teams. For us this time, it was for the teams. And it looks like we're going to go back into for round 2. So which point will we get?
I think that's kind of the big question here, right? The Symmetra from Nova Scotia was extremely powerful.
Ooh.
And if we get something like a Night Market, that can be scary. But now, instead, it will be Garden. So I think that's going to force them to swap onto something a little bit different. Now, with all these different changes, I'm not sure anybody can really predict what we're going to see here, especially given teams have certain specialties, whether or not they like running the Genji, whether or not they like running the dive here. Do you have any sort of idea how this is going to play out, given the compositions that they're showing us right now?
I mean, what I want to point out is that we have Tricky Zerg now going over to the off tank and Thunders onto the Ashe. I think they actually swapped that around. I thought Tricky Zerg was on the Symmetra before. Is that correct?
It was Thunders on the Symmetra.
Okay, then they haven't swapped. I felt like I swept roles, but yeah, there we go. Nice boop to start out with. Titan gets that kill the train straight away. I haven't got my Lucia boop sound ready, but I should because it's another triple kill. No! He's gotten no mercy. He sends him careening off the edge like a child off the top of a Burger King playground. It's a rough life to live, but one that Hour Zero are now facing the consequences of. And Titan is saying to Pizza Lawyer, hey, you thought we're going to get a play of the game with that 4K? Watch this. And he gets the triple with the environmental. I think it was 4, actually, because he got the first one and then 2 more. And Cupcake jumped off the map, but that might still count in that play of the game. So you're never going to beat that. Not in a million years. So maybe you get a 4K. The Titan's kind of the only one who can do that. I feel bad for Pizza Lawyer. You have that good a play, and then the books just come out.
As well, keeping an eye on Titan yet again. Almost up to the mine, so splitting apart the team. Oh, he fails the grapple! Doesn't quite get on fire, but still, Thunder's gonna be coming off the first kill. Down on Navarro, who is charging up and getting relatively close to a blaze. That's a pretty big kill there for Nova Scotia, but they do have to encroach on Hour Zero, who have their double shield set up on point, exactly where they want to be. Great dynamite out of Thunders, though. Sends the Bob into the backline, forces a great rotation out of Hour Zero, but it's too little too late. They've already sustained so much damage. Nova Scotia come in with the mines, with the rally, and clean it right on up.
Yeah, they had way too much tools to work with. You get that many environmental kills, you get a lot of ult charge. So Titan already pick up to 20. We'll charge towards those next mines quickly. And if they can play it relatively slowly, there will be a lot of ultimates online here for the side of Hour Zero. But they still need to be able to use them effectively because they so far have not really gotten that much value out of them.
No, and I think there's a lot of things they can actually do about what Nova Scotia are playing here, right? You have the Brigitte alongside the Ana, but there's also the Ashe that's been sitting out in the open for a long time that you can take advantage of. Pizza Lawyer goes in the back and does the exact opposite to Hour Zero to start things off. Another great dynamite Overtop dishing out a ton of damage, now trying to rally in. Hour Zero have a lot of sustain, but again, the anti-nade is just going to shut that down in its tracks, throwing in the blade, just trying to find some form of value, but immediately just gets self-destructed and viral. He can't catch a break, but Train Cloud can catch a Gravitic Clutch onto Tricky Zerg. We're trading 1-for-1 here, but Pizza Lawyer makes it uneven with the Pulse Bomb onto 2. Nova Scotia look to hold on to the point at 95%.
Yeah, and we got to remember, you say 15 seed towards 5th seed. That should be a clear-cut winner.
Oh, Titan!
Oh, Titan! They have families! I know they like fish, but, they're not marine biologists. They're not supposed to study them.
Well, into the koi pond they go. Not much long for life Overwatch characters. I think Moxie put it best. Somehow, still don't know how to swim. 99% should take over here for Nova Scotia. And they're going to take map 1 in a very dominant fashion here.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't want to win. No, of course they do, but they're going to keep fighting, but they just don't have the sustain to come back in. And I think when you get that many environmental kills to you, it's just hard to come back from. That's just demotivating. And at that point, you got to do a mental reset, come back for map 2. It's going to be your own map pick, and that also means you're going to be able to properly set up your own place for it. Control is always that chaos, and I do feel that Nova Scotia really thrived in that chaos. Pizza Lawyer, after all, does get that play of the game. I will say maybe they fixed it in Overwatch.
Titan was robbed.
Yeah, I definitely, because I do feel the environmentals always get so many things. Only gets 3 on the card. I felt he had like 6 or something, but you know what? He gets the card. He gets the 7-up votes. It's deserved. Our Zero is gonna now pick the escort map. But what I kind of want to come back to, I do think Nova Scotia definitely look to be thriving in chaos. And when we go to more organized map types, which is usually how we ramp things up, so we start on Control, which is very chaotic. Then you go to Escort, which is still a lot of that momentum, chaos-based playstyle sometimes. A little bit more organized because you have more time. Then you go to Hybrid, which is even more organized. You can actually set up a defense on that first control point. And then you go to Assault, which is the whole, now we set up. You break our vaults. That's the whole thing. So maybe we see a complete turnaround and we can actually see a reverse sweep happen because of that effect. But our Zero still has a lot to prove because that was not at all a close map.
No. And it's crazy, right? We talked about the Genji before the cast as well. In Nova Scotia, they didn't have to use it at all. They came in with very, very creative, very interesting compositions there. And that ones that work especially well on control points. You mentioned as we go to these more formatted points, those may work less and less. But honestly, I just like to see compositional diversity right now. Our Zero, they want to rely on that Genji, but Viral just hasn't found any real value on it. So compositionally, I think I want to see something different from Our Zero. Do you have any suggestions as to what that might be, though?
I mean, so there's always 2 ways you can go with this, right? Where either you say we or 3 ways, really. You can keep playing your own game, which when it's not control might actually work, where you get some more space to work with, some more time to work with. You can actually set up plays a little bit better. Or you can try to mirror it. So you can play exactly what Nova Scotia is doing and try and beat their own game. That usually doesn't work because you haven't practiced on it or, practiced that against it. Or you can try and find, like you said, the counter. So do I have any suggestions for that? I don't know, because they're not going to play the same thing as they did on Control. I think that doesn't necessarily work. So they'll go with some other form of their composition. And that means that also it's really unpredictable. So until they get into game and they get to a map that they're going to get from Route 66, I'm not actually sure what Our Zero can do. Like, the execution always has to be good, but I feel like if they can make the space, which I think they can, I think the space wasn't the issue. And if they can then get their DPS into position to execute as a team and do something, then, obviously they'll have a shot. But so far, it has been looking like everything they want to set up is not really working for Our Zero. So when you look at Nova Scotia, they have just been able to kind of be unchallenged. They're able to decide their own tempo, to make their move. They make preemptive moves a lot of time. We saw that one Tracer pick off on the Ash. It's all those type of things where Our Zero just needs to get a grip of their own tempo and not let Nova Scotia just play their game and try and deal with that. Need to make it their game. And maybe Route 66 is the map they can do that on, because we don't see it that often. We've been going to Rialto a lot lately.
Yeah, now that you mention it, we have been going to a lot of Rialto.
Yeah.
Route 66, this is a very much so a breath of fresh air. One that I don't mind, though. One that is very interesting compositionally. You can run the dive, you can run the double shield, set yourself up on the high ground. Our Zero, one thing I'd love to see out of them is a little bit of a flex off of the standard double shield of the Orisa Sigma. They're gonna run it anyways. I wouldn't mind something like an Orisa Reinhardt, even kind of go really out there with an Orisa Winston, play that little mini dive composition with the Genji Winston, something that it's a little bit janky, but it also can work really well against teams like Nova Scotia, who are already splitting themselves up, trying to cause all that chaos.
I do think though that when you can finally have a consistent high ground as a defense, which they do have now, the Sigma is going to do so much more work because they can stand on the proper off angle, do halt accretion combos, get all their damage in. The same goes for the Ashe when you have so much more preemptive space to spam at your opponents that I don't mind it on this defense. The one thing I do question is the Genji pick because the Genji pick hasn't been getting value. But again, it's such a different environment to do it here where you have places to retreat to and to just defend. You have to defend a position rather than like walk around the enemy team all the time. And they go for this aggressive hold door.
That they are, and it's working out for them so far, but with Cynoid going down, Tricky's are traded out here. Nova Scotia are going to have a hard time moving forward without that Orisa. Thunders has such a great angle up over top. Finally gets dived, though, by Viral, who should be shutting it down in hour zero. I think there's going to be a successful early hold.
That looks like it, and I wouldn't mind seeing, like, once again, something like this dive working out properly on an attack, but it's going to be much harder to do when you actually try to get on this on this place. Also, we got a little bit of an oopsie to do. Sorry for that. It's Beckenbauer, not Baconbauer. So we'll try to get that right. I'm sorry about that. I know we do. We try, but they come out of the tunnel here and they immediately go into that immortality field. It's already gone. What an explosive play!
I mean, the double cheddar, the double cheese strat here. Put the spawn hold and the tunnel hold. That's a little spice that we needed to see. Hour Zero didn't show us anything creative in the previous map, but that's a sign of life, class.
And it's also a sign that they actually do think about the plays they make, and that they are a strategically thinking team, which, you know, I was kind of alluding to that if they are, the next few maps are going to get better and better for them. And being able to pick a map like this and having prepared something like this is really working for them. The question is, will they fall for the same trick twice, holding in the tunnel?
Well, I don't think they're going to fall for it. They do have to be under a lot of pressure from the Amplification Matrix. Great flank, though, from Ventaggio on the Sigma now. He was subbed in between the maps and starting to put in work, but they still can't get the cart any further. Dragonblade from Viral is only going to get one to Beckenbauer cleaning up afterwards. Hour Zero, their tanks haven't been touched. Therefore, this early hold is going to continue to pay off.
Yeah, that's another environmental kill by the Accretion whip shot combo from Jam and Train Cloud. There's quite a few less members now, though, for the defense, and they keep getting picked off more and more. So the next hold they'll have to do will have to be a little further back after these last few members die on card. But they're taking a long time to clean up, so that will be plenty of time to come back for a few members. Train Cloud's still there, actually. Not only now dies, but yeah, good job to finally get them out. And this is usually what you see with spawn holds. Eventually, you lose one member, then two members, and you have to start holding at the next point. But they'll still be able to abuse this high ground, I feel like, which is a very good thing because that's what their composition can really work with.
Yeah, absolutely. That timer as well is kind of brutal for Nova Scotia. They just had time chipped off the clock moment by moment. They were just getting held for a really long time. They weren't able to find those tanks. Like we said, even the staggers at the end cost them a long time. However, an early pick on Ventaggio is going to look to put Hour Zero back into it, barely keeping him up though. Sports in a good position. Cynoid finds an early pick on a Peaceful, or again way too big for their bridges. Dropping the halt, the bongo on top of the point, and plenty of damage to follow. Hour Zero start off the fight correctly. Bobbin as well. They're hard committing to this one, but it's going to give them a great position over the point.
And I like how they're just positioning their front line in a way that forces Nova Scotia to have to deal with them. And then their DPS just go for the DPS on the other side. We've heard it yesterday as well, where they in the interview where Dub Nation was saying that DPS are so much easier to get now that they're not overcharged with that Brigitte armor anymore. And you see it coming to fruition, where Cynoid and Viral were just able to take out their counterports with one swift play. And then there's just not enough damage to help their front line out to defeat the front line of Hour Zero.
Well, they've got the position now. Hour Zero are set up, and Nova Scotia have had a real hard time breaking that front line, like you said. A halt into the Gravitic Flux going to make that even harder. Pulled out the Immortality field, but that's only going to keep you alive for so long. Great halt off the high ground, though, from Trickyzorg to start this fight off into the Gravitic Flux. Up they go, and then down they fall here. Hour Zero, regardless of how well that spawn hold went, it will be taking it overtime.
Yeah, finally they'll get it, unless we get an amazing play from the DPS. They do take out 2 members, but that's not going to be enough. There was plenty left. And you saw it happen. We've seen it happen quite a few times in the past in all the games so far. As long as there's no immortality fields, the gravitic flux gets a lot of value, and it was exactly what happened there. They had to use it early. They forced it out somehow. I think they wanted to save Beckenbauer, and it didn't quite work out. So, unfortunately, that didn't happen, but there was a beautiful gravitic flux that followed from Vintaggio, and the swap out of the new player finally got some fruit.
Paid off for right now, but again, this point can be really hard because that timer. Pizza Lawyer starts out really well, though. Picks on the Cynoid. You mentioned the DPS being easy to find. I feel like every single fight has started out just like this. Viral, though, still believes in this one, goes for the blade, but immediately gets shown the error of his ways.
Yeah, you can believe all you want, but sometimes all you have is a dream, and it doesn't come true. So, unfortunately, a lot of ultimates still online as well for the attack. Like, Hour Zero, they had a very good hold on point A, but now they've kind of gotten this roll going, this momentum that we often see on escort maps, and Nova Scotia are not looking to let up anytime soon with all those 4 tools they've got coming up for this next fight.
There's plenty of stuff for Nova Scotia to win this next one, but again, execution has kind of been the part where they fall off. It's a little bit dicey here. 1 minute on the clock. They're gonna start with the Ant Matrix from the high ground. Can't find a first one though, as it's Viral on a Dr. Grimm instead, not allowing him to get that Transcendence built up. And without any ultimates having to be committed here, Hour Zero come away with the fight. They had no right winning.
No, they definitely did not. With all those ultimates used, I think that was 3 coming out there. Pulse Bomb, Supercharger, and the Amplification Matrix. There'll still be another 3 coming up. So there will be the Bob, the Transcendence, and the Gravitic Flux ready. But now you've got all the ultimates on the other side because they didn't have to use anything on the side of Hour Zero. They'll come in with 5 ultimates on this next fight. With 30 seconds left, that's a tricky situation to be in if you are Nova Scotia.
I mean, if you're asking me right now, it's a race for Dr. Grimm and Viral to their ultimate. That Transcendence could shut down a lot of this. Dr. Grimm charged up to 86%, starting off with the Gravitic Flux. Vintaggio going to be buying his team a lot of time and putting a lot of damage down as well, laying down the laws of physics here at the end of point. Bravo, Nova Scotia. Couple ults used and all 6 members down for Hour Zero.
Yeah, in this case, so you start wondering for Hour Zero if they did not feel like they had such an ultimate advantage. Because what you'll often see teams do when they have such an advantage is they just push their advantage. They go in very aggressively and use those ultimates preemptively. But they were kind of being a bit passive about it. And then that ultimate from Vintaggio actually is the initiation that just kicks everything off.
Put off more than once here. They still got only a minute on the clock. Starting with the Boggles from the high ground here. Hour Zero are in a beautiful position, raining down a hail of bullets over top. Tricky Zero Thunders both dropped incredibly low. Another halt to keep laying on the damage and laying down thick, but with Beckenbauer going down, that's going to slow down this push from Hour Zero, make it a lot harder for him. Viral, though, starting to clean up all those low HP heroes. The Genji, again, so good at executing teams one by one, and he'll do exactly that to close out the fight.
Yeah, and then you need to wonder, like, why couldn't they do it in the last fight, right? When they had such an ultimate advantage. Because now they've used a lot of ultimates, and they'll be behind in the race again. There will be 5 online for the side of Nova Scotia, and they're going to initiate with them. They're going to kill something with them. But we have seen low ultimate fights being won sometimes here.
Starting it off with the Bob here. Nova Scotia, but let's face 2 kills on the Bob, 3 kills on the Bob! Thunder's with the play of the game, but I think we really have to hand it to the Omnic there. As 10 seconds tick down the clock, he's giving them life.
Well, such a heads-up play. They throw in the Bob, and then Hour Zero says, no, we're going to still go for our play, even though we're being shot in the back. And that was very annoying, because then you have fire coming from 2 sides, and you cannot really deal with that because Cupcake had already fallen to the Bob. Now they get the spawn kills. This is going in the wrong direction for Hour Zero.
Well, they still got a blade to start cleaning it up. Viral hasn't quite found the big one yet, though, and he's not going to find it now. Only 1 with that. Pizza and Vintaggio on the other end of the battlefield. Again, just engage on the backline whenever he pops it. The bomb goes down. So are the players here for Hour Zero. That cart nears the end. There's not much they can do about it.
No, I think there were plenty of chances for our Zero to do something, plenty of chances to actually win the fight and win the map and not let them get to that third point. But unfortunately, some missed timings here and there, some ultimates that didn't quite get the value they wanted. But most of all, I think there was a lack of initiation coming out from our Zero. I think if they can make the early moves like they were doing on point A they set up in the train car, they set up in the tunnel, they set up on the high ground, and they make that first move. And as soon as they lose that initiative, they seem to just be falling apart. They don't seem to have the reactive capacity to really adapt to a different playstyle like that. So I really want to see from them to be more of that reactive team, active team, and to not let Nova Scotia set the tempo like they were doing on Control and like they were doing in the second and third part of that map.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you say. We can harken back to all the moments where Nova Scotia came out ahead. Whether it was the Junkrat tires start the fight off, whether it was all of those picks, whether it was Pizza Lawyer diving onto the Ash, it's them driving a lot of these fights. In Hour Zero, they saw this spark of greatness, this little hint at the flame that it could have been with those early holds. They were making the fights happen. They were the ones surprising Nova Scotia, but it hasn't been that after point B, right? They took it over, and then it felt like Hour Zero just crumbled apart. All that strong positioning that they had set themselves up in and demanded the tempo in fights, I haven't seen that since. So on attack, that's going to be especially important. We'll see if they do any better at it.
Yeah, we definitely will, because of course we get another round, so that's how we work. That's how it works. Synoid now going over to the or Synoid going over to the McCree. Viral still on that Genji that still hasn't seen as much value as we'd like. Especially with the blades. Vanilla has been doing work, but that's sometimes not enough. And we see a much more passive hold, much more further back hold coming out here from Nova Scotia. We do have Pizza Lawyer on the high ground. We'll probably dive into the backline trying to get that one flip.
We know obnoxious as Tracer has been, just a pest among men right now, but Hour Zero appropriately dealing with them. They haven't quite called the Exterminator yet, though. That's still just chucking in bullet after bullet after bullet. Ventaggio, I love this! Aggressive out the high ground, jumps for the trick shot with the accretion, but he may be in a bit of trouble here. He's struggling to get out. Thunder's gonna fall in the backline meanwhile as Viral finds a successful dive as well. The off tank still alive on cart somehow here for Nova Scotia, but not quite positioned perfectly as now they're caught between a lot of very, very painful Hour Zero players.
Well, very good play to throw out the Immortality Field and the armor packs onto Ventaggio is still alive. And there we see the Relic come out here. Oh, so many plays at the same time. A lot of damage being pumped out, but it's Hour Zero that actually takes the lead here in the kill feed, and they will be able to push this through. And because they were holding so far back, this payload might just get there without another contest.
Yeah, as good as that accretion looked from Ventaggio, he was throwing himself to the wolves, got down to the low ground, and then from there, his team just got pulled apart. No one was in a correct position. Now you're facing down a really bad fight.
Yeah, you should be. Look at the old situation, but it's not terrible. They will have a rally. They have the application matrix, so they can long range definitely spam this out and just win this. And even when it comes close, the rally will help them out. But they got to be ready for that blade and that high noon because they can be pulling off angles where you're not ready for them.
What is that amplification matrix doing?
Maybe misclick.
Do you see the matrix? I'm looking at the matrix.
Yeah, so I think they wanted to put it. I think they wanted to put it on the bridge and then like jumped or something, and like the animation went further and they clicked at the wrong moment. I think that's probably what happened, but can't be too certain about that.
It's all right. No. I just want we saw it. We know what he wanted to do, but we saw what he did, and I think that's clearly what matters. Is he lost a player for it. Thunder's is gonna go down for his sins. Oh, what a halt off the high ground, though, into the Great Flux. Oh, but it's the higher noon from Synoid with the opposing ultimate here. Now cowering into this back hallway. Nova Scotia, they may have found themselves one frag down on Viral, second on the Cupcake, but they've got to get back on this cart and position themselves correctly doing it. They have dropped off in one group, so they should be able to clean this off. A well-played rotation from them.
Two Fluxes come out, one High Noon joins the party, but the High Noon actually ruins a lot of the plans that they had. Because they didn't really get the value that it needed to. Eventually, they do hold on. So the High Noon was just a threat, I guess, just to use some extra resources. And now they'll still have a lot of resources left. Pizza Lawyer actually got another High Noon up in all that time. Actually, no, because it was Synoid that used it, so it didn't work. So Pizza Lawyer still now has a High Noon up, but they can't use it for the Sky Noon, unfortunately.
Well, there's still a lot of ultimates here online for Nova Scotia, right? You've got the Deadeye, you have the Bongo, you have the Bob, all things that have ended fights up against Hour Zero in games previous. It's all about execution, though. Great implication matrix from Cupcake. It's just going to demand a lot of space and allow this card to move forward to a better position. Halt into the bongo. Tons of damage coming out from both sides. Thunders, what are you doing up there, bud? That is not your ground. That belongs to Viral. He's coming in and cleaning up multiple players right now, dashing in and out at a whim. Vantagio now separated away from Tricky. They have no real footing in this fight as Beckenbauer goes wherever he pleases.
Yeah, Beckenbauer is just a force of nature at that point. It is going to be a, I would say, pretty rough one here for Nova Scotia to try and hold on. Of course, a lot more time in that bank than Hour Zero, than they had themselves for Hour Zero. And I think there might be one more contest, but I think they're going to give it up for now because I don't think they're close enough to contest this. So yeah, 4 minutes to go into third, and that's plenty of time.
Plenty of time to complete the map, but you have to remember that so did Nova Scotia, so the time bank's gonna be pretty important here. Also coming up, and this is a lot more difficult for these teams to play. Of course, they have the Deadeye, they have the Bob, so many things that are brutal here. Pizza Lawyer charging it up, looking to lay him down. Nope, the invulnerability field is going to be keeping Hour Zero alive for the time being. A smart disengagement, but looking for the right time to move in. Viral nearly gets taken out by an accretion, but good job by Train Cloud and Beckenbauer moving forward and making space for them. Such great play back and forth from each team, but at the end of the day, the first frag is finally going to be going down from the Grid Flux, comboed with a Bob to seal out the fight for Nova Scotia.
Yeah, they knew that the Immortality Field was still down during the high noon from Cupcake. And then they know that they can win through the Gravitic Flux. And it kind of feels like if you don't have that Immortality Field or maybe a Sound Barrier or Transcendence, the Gravitic Flux is going to find always at least one and usually multiple kills as a follow-up. So, yeah, that was a fairly easy fight to win after they saw the Immortality Field go down. But now there'll be a fairly nice amount of ultimates online for Hour Zero, and especially that Blade. Is it going to get the value?
He's yet to find it quite yet. Bolt into the Dynamite has been a common combo, though, in this match so far. And they've executed beautifully on it. Nova Scotia forced all of Hour Zero back. However, this time it's going to be the Halt into Dynamite into Bob combo from Hour Zero. Anything you can do, they can find one way to do it better. Viral, this plays a big commitment to try and end the fight, but he really wants to do it.
Yeah, he just definitely contributes to capitalizing on that distraction. We'll go down to the Dynamite of Thunders there, but the Bob goes in, it forces the Immortality Field, then there's all this space and this opportunity and this chaos for Viral to get some value out of the Blade. Still goes down, but definitely help chunk some targets down for Bob.
Held on to 3 ultimates, though. The Gridic Flux going to find a lot of value on the people trying to hold them in their spawn. Meanwhile, in their backline, Pizza Lawyer and Thunder's Bob going ham on the card. Beckenbauer falls, and now with no more risk to hold space. They still got 2 minutes on the clock, but Hour Zero, they're feeling a little hot in their shoes.
Yeah, it's going to be a fairly good shot here still to make it to the end, but the time is growing short. It might end up into one of those 1 minute situations later on. But before we get there, they still have to make it to the end of the map. Beckenbauer and Train Cloud will have their ultimates, and there's not much to stop it on the other side. Dr. Grimm might be close to the rally, but definitely not close enough in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Nova Scotia are lacking big time in the way of ultimates. They need to use this positional advantage as well as they can. Use this high ground effectively. Hour Zero, though, they're coming to take it away from them. Beautiful heads-up play from them. Using the Halt to buy as much time as they can. Train Cloud, Gravitic Flux, is it going to connect, though? Does hit onto 3, forces the Fortify out of Tricky. No, he doesn't have it. Takes a ton of damage, now an accretion, and the cleanup is